baked on stones or griddles placed near or on a fire. So what did they use if they didn't use yeast to leaven bread? Well, they used baking soda. Now, very early cookbooks referred to this as saleratus, which is called baking soda, of course. Sal in Latin means salt, and aeratus means aerated salt. An early version of that was pearl ash. It was actually made from wood ash and other ingredients, and it was potassium bicarbonate. Now, the problem with these early forms of baking soda, no matter what kind of bicarbonate they were, is some were strong, some were weak. There was a taste, sometimes a bitter aftertaste, and some of them lost their power when they got damp. So this was all solved in about 1846. Two guys in New York got together, Church and Dwight, and they produced a synthetic, a very predictable baking soda, which eventually became known as Arm & Hammer baking soda. So now we have the leavener. Let's go to the kitchen with Bridget and make one of my favorite breads in under an hour, which is the brown Irish soda bread. Well, I just got back from the Olympics in London, and I won the discus throwing competition.
You did?
With your brown soda bread. So this is what not to do. Right, here we go. We'll test this out.
Ooh, not good.
Not good. So your job is to do something a little lighter.
A lot lighter. It still has some great flavor, too.
So let's flavor it in under an hour.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there we go.
A lot of reasons to make soda bread. As you mentioned, it's a quick bread. That's why I like it so much. And it uses soda as the leavener, so we don't need to worry about yeast. But what we're not going to use is Irish wholemeal flour. Now, wholemeal flour is what's traditionally used, and it's actually kind of a coarser grain. It contains the germ, it contains the bran, it has a lot of great flavor, but you can't really find it over here in the States very easily. So we're going to start with its closest cousin, which is whole wheat flour. This is 1.5 cups, and that works out to about 8 1/4 ounces. But we're going to cut that with some all-purpose flour. This is just 2 cups of all-purpose flour, about 10 ounces. And this is really going to start lightening that loaf of bread. All right, so as I mentioned before, it's soda bread, and this is a teaspoon of soda, but on its own, it's really not enough to lighten this loaf. So rather than increase the amount, which would make it taste kind of soapy and chemical, we're going to use baking powder. This is 1 teaspoon.
Double lift.
That's right, double lift. Now for flavor, got 1.5 teaspoons of salt. And now we're also going to add a little bit of sugar. Now, sugar is not traditional, and some people say it has no place in soda bread, but it really does add to the flavor. This is just 3 tablespoons for all that flour. Not too much.
I think there's an angry Irish mob outside. I mean, they don't put sugar in the soda bread, do they?
No, not traditionally. And we're going to add a couple other ingredients that aren't traditional as well, starting with toasted wheat germ. This is a 1/2 cup, and it's going to add a lot of that wheaty flavor back that we lost by using all-purpose flour. We just whisk all this together. It's the beauty of a quick bread. Onto our wet ingredients. I'm going to start off with buttermilk, very traditional. It's going to react with the soda in there to give it that leavening power. And this is 1 3/4 cups of buttermilk, and it's very cold. I'm also going to add in 2 tablespoons of melted and slightly cooled butter, and that's just going to give it some nice richness. Just going to stir this together. The butter will actually start to clump a little bit, and that's fine.
The buttermilk was cold, so the butter starts forming little pieces, right?
That's right. And then once it's incorporated into the loaf, those little pieces of butter are going to steam and give it a little bit more lift. This just goes right in here, and just mix it together. Should come together fairly quickly. But at this point, it just looks kind of like a shaggy mess. Just want to flour my bench here. Plop this out onto the board. I just want to bring this together. Really just knead it maybe 8 to 10 times. Just wanted to get it into a cohesive mass at this point. And you really don't want to overwork it because it will make it too tough. Just want to pat this out to about a 7-inch round. I'm going to transfer this to a parchment-lined baking sheet. You can see how it's all craggy and everything. That's fine. It doesn't have to be completely cohesive like a traditional dough. I want to make a couple of release cuts, and this is very important. So I'm just going to take a serrated knife, make a nice shallow cut there, basically giving a place for the loaf to expand and rise. This way it'll rise evenly in the oven. So we're going to put this in a 400-degree oven, and we want to bake this until the internal temperature registers 195 degrees. That's going to take about 45 to 50 minutes. Now halfway through baking, I'll rotate the pan.
Okay.
All right, so it's been about 45 minutes. Oh, that looks great. Now let's just check that temperature. Isn't that
It looks
beautiful?
craggy.
Yeah, so we're looking for about 195, and we're hitting it. Just want to brush this with another tablespoon of butter. That's going to soften the outer crust just a little bit. That's going to make it taste amazing.
Maybe you should brush some on me.
Yeah, exactly.
Soften my outer crust.
Exactly. Oh, you can hear it sizzle. Now I need to get this onto the rack, so I'm going to give this to you. I'm going to lift this up. There we go. And we're going to let this cool right here on the rack for about an hour, and that's going to allow the bread to kind of solidify. Otherwise, if we've cut into it right away, it would just be way too tender and it would start to crumble.
Which is exactly what you do at home.
It is what I
If
do
you
at
didn't
home.
have a TV camera.
That's right. It's been an hour. You've waited long enough.
I know that.
Time to cut into this beauty. Now you can hear that crust. Oh, look at that. All right.
Oh.
There you go. 2 pieces for you. 2 for me. Got some butter, a little bit of preserves here if you like.
I just want to taste it with nothing on it.
First,
Yeah.
yes.
It's moist.
It's so good.
Has a good weedy flavor, but it's also fairly light inside. The outside has a lot of crust.
And it's not scone-like. It didn't turn into one of those cakey scone type of soda bread with all the currants and the raisins in it.
So I can't go to the Olympics with the discus anymore.
That's true.
My career is over. So
Javelin for you.
great brown Irish soda bread starts with white and whole wheat flour, but not that wholemeal from Ireland. Some wheat germ for flavor, baking soda and baking powder for lift, and of course buttermilk. Hot oven 45 minutes, and a little melted butter